Hello all. So in the previous class, we have discussed entirely relating to a ratio analysis and what exactly the pertaining formula which is going to arrive with the ratio analysis. So today we shall see the problems relating to ratio analysis. Okay, we shall move on with this very simple problem. Later we will discuss about the full-fledged problem for the 14 minutes. So here from the following information, calculate current ratio and quick ratio. You need to calculate the current ratio as well as the quick ratio. So always remember the current ratio includes all the current assets and all the current liability. Okay. So quick ratio includes all the current assets except the inventory and except the prepaid expenses. Clear? And also the current liability except the bank overdraft, and if any amount received in advance, that will be excluded here. So here there is a cash in hand, cash at bank, stock, sundry debtors, prepaid expenses. So these are the current assets. So take these into consideration for calculating the current ratio. And bills payable is 10,000 and the creditor is 5,000. So current liability give you together, put together give you 15,000. So 45 by 15 gives you 3 by 1. So as it is a ratio, it should be expressed through ratios only. So 3 is to 1 will be the current ratio. So in the previous session, so I told you there is an ideal ratio for each ratio that we are going to compute. So for the current ratio, the ideal ratio was 2 is to 1. So here we got 3 is to 1 as the current ratio, which is indicating the company is well and good. So if you get 2 is to 1 itself, you can indicate that the firm is moving under which means the firm is under a soundness, that is creating a goodness in the company. Here you have got the current ratio at 3 is to 1. So it is still more better in condition for a business concern. So ideal ratio, which is going to indicate the outline, or it is going to indicate the financial soundness of a business. So the current ratio, ideal ratio was 2 is to 1. But here you got as 3 is to 1. It is still more better. Okay. So they have also asked you to calculate the quick ratio. So what is quick ratio? Quick ratio includes all the current assets except stock, except prepaid expenses. Okay. So quick assets includes the 45,000 minus 15,000 plus 2,000. So 45,000 minus 17,000 divided by 15,000. It includes all the current liability. So here you got 1.86 is to 1. So what was the ideal ratio? Ideal quick ratio. Ideal quick ratio was 1 is to 1. Here you got 1.86 is to 1. So it is also in a good condition. Okay. So now we'll quickly move on to the second problem. So here they've asked you to calculate the current ratio along with the quick ratio. So the same problem. So current ratio includes all the current assets and all the current liability. Quick ratio includes all the current assets except the stock and the prepaid expenses, but it includes all the current liability. So here there is an information, total assets is given, fixed assets is given, current liability is given, stock is given. Okay. So what is the current ratio formula? Current ratio is equals to current assets divided by current liability. But here in the question, they have not specified you directly the current asset. So you need to find out the current asset. The procedure to find out the current assets is total assets information is given. Along with that, fixed assets information is given. So calculate total assets minus fixed assets gives you a current asset. Okay. So 10 lakh is the total assets. Fixed assets is 5 lakh. Current assets will be again 5 lakh. So current ratio is equals to current assets divided by current liability. 5 lakhs divided by 2 lakhs gives you 2.5 is to 1. Okay. So now the quick ratio. Quick ratio includes all the assets, that is current assets, except the stock. Okay. Here, see here, the total assets is 10 lakhs. Out of 10 lakhs, 5 lakhs goes for the fixed assets. Okay. Out of that, 50,000 goes for the stock, which means the current assets includes 5 lakh. In, in the 5 lakh itself, the stock of 50,000 is included. So, which gives you 5 lakhs together. Okay. So, here in the quick assets, we need to exclude the stock. So current assets was 5 lakhs. You have already computed here. 5 lakhs minus 50,000 of stock. 4 lakh 50,000 is the quick asset. So current liability is given directly. So take as it is. Okay. So what was the ideal quick ratio? The ideal quick ratio was 1:1. But here in the question you got 2.25:1. So it is indicated that the firm is still more in a good condition. Okay. And in order to note, this also very important. If there is no quick asset is given, you need to find out the quick asset is like this: current assets minus stock. This is how we have calculated here. Quick asset, so current assets minus stock. Clear? Yes. Problem number 3. X limited has a quick ratio of 3:1. Be very particular. See here, the quick ratio is given, and current liability rupees 50,000, stock rupees 25,000. Find out the current assets and current ratio. You need to find out the current assets and the current ratio. You know to find out the current ratio. What is the formula to find out current ratio? Current assets divided by current liability. So have they given current liability is given here? You need to find out the current assets. Clear? So how to find out the current assets? So current assets will be computed by this way. So there is a quick ratio information given. Out of the quick ratio information, you can easily find out the current assets. That is by you will find out the quick assets along with the current liability, somehow it is given. So see here, apply the formula of quick ratio. Quick ratio is equals to quick assets divided by current liability. So what was the quick ratio? We need only the asset. 3 is indicating as asset, that is quick asset. 1 is indicating for the liability, current liability. Okay. So we have already got the one value. So what is the one value? It is 50,000. Clear? Are you able to understand? So here, see here. See, 1 is indicating. 3 is indicating for the current assets. Okay. Assets. And 1 is indicating for the liability. Clear? 1 is already given as 50,000. So 3 you have to find out. So quick ratio is equals to 3 is equals to quick assets. So how do you get the quick assets? Current assets will be minus with the stock. So stock information is given here as 25,000. So minus 25,000 divided by 50,000. So multiply 50,000 into 3 will give you 1,50,000 plus 25,000. So when current assets goes here, it becomes plus. So plus 25,000. So current assets will be 1,75,000. I'll repeat again. See, here there is 50,000. 50,000 into 3 will give you 1,50,000. Okay. So you're taking current assets here. So it becomes the 25,000. So current assets will be 1,75,000. So you got the current assets now. So apply to the current ratio. So current assets is 1,75,000 by 50,000. You got 3.5:1. 1. Okay. So here you can identify here 1,50,000 divided by 50,000. That is quick ratio. So you have find out the current assets here. So what is the current assets? 1,75,000. Out of these current assets, there is also stock which is included. So what is the stock which is included? 25,000 worth of rupees is included here. So deducted, you will get 1,50,000 as a quick asset divided with the current liability, 50,000. So quick ratio you can identify here. Quick ratio is also 3:1. Okay. So in the question also they have given quick ratio 3:1. So 3 stands for the assets and 1 stands for the liability. So ideal ratio of quick ratio was 1:1. But you got here as 3:1. So it is in a better and the good condition or a better position. So we shall see the fourth one. The current assets of the company consists of stock, debtors and cash in the ratio of 4:3:2. See, stock ratio is 4, debtors 3, cash is 2 respectively. Debtors rupees 45,000, current liability rupees 50,000. You need to calculate current assets, stock, cash and current ratio as well as the quick ratio. So see, there is a hint to find out the values. They have asked you to find out the current ratio as well as the quick ratio. What is the formula to calculate the current ratio? Current assets divided by current liability. Quick ratio is quick assets divided by current liability. So by this information, there is also certain pertaining to information given here. So what is the information given? Stock is 4, debtors 3, cash 2. Add together, which gives you a current assets. Stock, debtors, cash are all the current assets. So current assets is equals to 4:3:2. Clear? There is a debtors information is given. So see, out of debtors information 45,000 ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅವರು. So debtors the value ಏನಿದೆ? Ratio ಬಂದು 3 ಬಂದಿದೆ. So out of these information, 45,000 and 3 information, the given information, you can find out the stock and the cash. Okay. Which means you know only the ratio for the stock, that is 4. I'll do here, see. There is a stock, you don't know. You have to find out. There is the debtors. What is the debtor? 3 goes for 45,000. Okay. Multiply these two, cross multiply 45,000 into 4 divided by 3. Gives you stock as well as in the same way calculate the cash. Okay. So you will get 60,000 and 30,000 as the stock and the cash. See, there will be hint given like this. Either any of the things, if any information is missing by this, you need to find out by multiplying this itself. There is a debtors information is given and also there is a ratio pertaining to that is given. Sometimes they don't give you a debtor, sometimes they give you a stock. So stock and the ratio will be given. So out of these information, calculate the rest of the information by cross multiplication. Okay. So this is how the procedure goes on with the calculation of stock and the cash. So what will be the total? 45,000 was the debtors which was given. 60 you have computed. Cash is also you have computed. So total is 1,35,000 is the current asset. Clear? So what was the given information? To calculate the current assets. You have calculated the current assets. And there is also current liability of rupees 50,000 is already given. So you can easily find out the current ratio, right? So current ratio is equals to current assets divided by current liabilities. Current assets is 1,35,000. So current liability is 50,000. So divided by 50, 1,35,000 divided by 50,000 gives you 2.7 is to 1. So ideal ratio, you can also write here. Therefore, the ideal ratio of the current ratio was 2 is to 1. But here it is 2.7 is to 1. So the firm is under a better condition. Okay. So, and they have also asked you to find out the quick ratio. So quick ratio includes what? Quick assets divided by current liability. You know the current liability already. Now you have to find out the stock first. What is the stock? Because, so stock you have already computed. So what is the stock here? 60,000. So out of 1,35,000 minus 60,000, you will get the quick assets. So quick assets is 1,35,000 minus 60,000 divided by current liability is 50,000. So 1 is to 5 for 1.5 is to 1 is the quick ratio. Clear? Let's move on to the fifth problem. So here the current ratio is 3 is to 1. Working capital is given 30,000. So what is working capital? Current assets minus current liability is a working capital. I'm repeating again. What is working capital? Current assets, what the changes between the current assets and the current liability indicates the working capital. Whether it is increase or whether it is decrease, it is going to indicate with the working capital only. Okay. So now you are required to calculate the current assets as well as the current liability. There is a current ratio given. Okay. So apply the formula of working capital. Working capital is equals to current assets minus current liability. We have already been computing from the fund flow the same thing, right? So here working capital is given 30,000. Current assets, I told you, current ratio is 3 is to 1. What is the current ratio formula? Current assets divided by current liability. 3 goes for the current assets and 1 moves on with the current liability. So 3 minus 1. Clear? 3 goes on for the assets and 1 indicates the liability. Clear? 3 minus 1. So 30,000 is equals to 2, which means the firm is spending only 1 rupee for making a profit of 3, which is a income for a company. So 3 minus 2 will be 1, which is giving you 2. So 30,000 into 3. You have to find out what? Current assets as well as the current liability. What are the information you have got already? You have got the information of 30,000 into 2. That is working capital. You have 30,000 stands for the value of 2. The current assets goes on with the ratio 3. Current liability goes on with the ratio 1. Okay. So out of that you need to find out the current assets. So 30,000 get 2 ಆದ್ರೆ 3 of current assets ಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು values ಬರುತ್ತೆ? Cross multiply. So 30,000 into 3 divided by 2. Shall I repeat it? See, there is a value which is you have got for the 2 worth of assets. You got 30,000. You will be find outing for the 3. Where do you get this? Got this 3? You got the 3 in the current ratio. Okay. So current ratio you got. So current ratio 3 into 30,000 divided by 2. So which gives you 45,000 as the current asset. In the same manner, proceed with the current liability. So 1 is the value for the current liability. Okay. So for 1 you have to find out. So 2 ರೇಷಿಯೋಗೆ 30,000 ಅಂದ್ರೆ 1 ರೇಷಿಯೋಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಲಯಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಅಂತ ಕಂಡುಹಿಡಿತೀರಾ ನೀವು. ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್? ಓಕೆ. So this is what you will be computing with the current assets as well as the current ratio and the quick ratio. So now let us understand with the concepts. So now there is a problem 6. So quick ratio is given as 1 is to 2 is to 1. 1.2 is to 1. Working capital is 1,80,000. Current ratio is 3 is to 1. You are asked to prepare the current assets. Required to prepare the current assets as well as to find out the current liabilities under stock. We have already calculated the current assets. You know to calculate when there is a working capital it changes or the working capital is given. So working capital is equals to current assets minus current liability. So 1,80,000 stands for the ratio 2. You have to find out the current ratio is given. So current ratio 3 minus 1. So what will be the value? The same value. For 2, 1,80,000. For 3, you have to find out what is the current asset. And for 1, you have to find out when there is 2 worth of 1,80,000. The same way current liability will be computed. Further, there is a quick ratio 1 is to 2, 1.2 is to 1. There is an information. So quick ratio is equals to current assets minus stock divided by current liability. 1.2. So current assets you have already calculated here. See, there is a link between. If you find out one, you can find out the other. If you don't find out the one, it is very difficult to find out the second one. So be careful while computing the values. Okay. So current assets is 2,70,000 minus stock divided by 90.2 will give you 1,08,000 is equals to 2,70,000 minus stock. So replace the value of stock to here. So stock goes here and this 1,80,000 goes on there. So it will be a minus. So minus stands the place remains the same. So 2,70,000 minus 1,08,000, the stock will be 1,62,000. So they have asked you to calculate the current assets. You have computed the current assets, current liability you have computed, and also the stock you have computed by applying the quick ratio formula. So whenever you are asked to find out the stock, the quick ratio will be given. By this itself, you can find out the stock. Sometimes there will be a information missing with the current assets. So current assets ಅಥವಾ current liability information miss ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ working capital changes ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಓಕೆನಾ? So working capital changes ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದಾಗ there will be certain stock information or debtors information. So by that you can find out the current assets. Clear? So now problem 7 goes on with the current ratio 2.5 is to 1, quick ratio 1.5 is to 1, stock 1,50,000. So net working capital. So what is the formula for working capital? Current assets minus current liability. See, and there is a quick assets. Quick assets includes what? Current assets minus stock. So stock is given there. So 1,50,000. So find out the stock, current assets minus quick assets. See, whenever there is the ratios given pertaining to this way, you can also apply the ratios and find out the stock. Stock 1,50,000 is equals to current ratio minus quick ratio asset. Okay. So current ratio formula is what? Current assets divided by current liability, which means 2.5 moves on for the current assets. 1 takes the value of the current liability. Clear? And here, quick ratio takes the value. 1.5 takes the quick assets and 1 takes the current liability. See, 1 and 1 remains the same because it is a current liability. Only with these two. This stands for the current assets and this stands for the quick assets. So stock is equals to current assets minus quick assets. 2.5 minus quick assets is 1. So by that you can find out 1,50,000 is equals to 1. Okay. So now find out in the same way. 1 lakh, it is 1.5. Okay. Not 1, it is 1.5. So 2.5 minus 1.5 gives you 1. Okay. So you have find out the worth of stock for 1. So therefore 1,51 ಆದರೆ the current assets you can find out now. 2.5 ಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟಾಗುತ್ತೆ 1.5 ಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಕ್ವಿಕ್ ಅಸೆಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕಂಡುಹಿಡಿಯಿರಿ by cross multiplying it. Apply the same thing to a current ratio. So current ratio ನಿಮಗೆ current assets ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಿದೆ. So current assets is 3,75,000. You can easily find out the current liability. So 2.5 current liability is equals to 3,75,000. So divided by that, you will get the current liability of 1,50,000. Now there is a net working capital. Current assets ಕಂಡುಹಿಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ ನೀವು. So current liability also you have found out here. Now find out the difference with the current assets and the current liability. You get the net working capital. So 3,75,000 minus 1,50,000 gives you 2,25,000. Okay. In the same way, compute yourself with the problem number 8, 9. So ninth one we will discuss. Okay. So in the same way, you can proceed with the 8th problem. Same thing is given. So we shall see here. Following is the balance sheet of X company as at 30th June 2019 given. So equity share capital 1 lakh, reserves 25,000, profit and loss 40,000, secured loan 70, sundry creditors 50, bank overdraft 30, provision for taxation 20 given. Assets information, goodwill, fixed assets C. We don't need all this information unless we find out, we see what should be calculated here. Okay. The stock, sundry debtors, less provision for doubtful debts and advances, bank balance and cash in hand given. So what is the current ratio formula? Taking all the current assets or taking all the current liability into consideration. So what is the liquid ratio? And it is also nothing but the quick ratio and the asset test ratio. It takes all the current assets except the stock as well as the prepaid expenses, but it considers all the current liability. And there is also an absolute liquid ratio to be found out. This is the new one that is required to be found out. See, find out the current ratio, take all the current assets, advances, bank balance, cash in hand. Be very particular. Fixed goodwill not appear, fixed assets will not appear, stock is the current assets, sundry debtor is a current assets, but except the reserve for doubtful, the value which is already been given. Take that except the reserve for doubtful debts. Even though it is mentioned in the adjustment, it has to be deducted and taken into consideration. Advances is given, bank balance is given, as well as the cash in hand given. So which gives you 1,35,000. So now look at the liability. This and all will not appear. Secured loan will not appear because it is only a short term is considered. Country creditors, bank overdraft, provision for taxation. So we'll give you 1 lakh. So 1,35,000 divided by 1 lakh. So in the same way, if you draw a column and if you write it, it will be very useful to understand it very clearly. Okay. So 1,35,000 divided by 1 lakh gives you 1.35 is to 1. Okay. So whenever there is no value also, you can just write it for the 1. Okay. So now quick ratio, quick assets divided by current liabilities, except the stock. Okay, appears the here. So 10,000 plus 20,000 plus 16,000 plus 49,000, except the stock. It indicates the quick assets divided by all the current liability. 0.95 is to 1. Absolute liquid ratio cash in bank, so which indicates the cash information and any short-term security, and it includes the current liability minus bank overdraft. This we have already discussed when I'm dealing with the formulas. So 46,000 divided by current liability was 1 lakh. Bank overdraft is given here. Any bank overdraft or any miscellaneous expenses, so that will be deducted here. So the miscellaneous incomes received in advance, so that will be deducted here. So 30,000, which gives you 0.66. Okay. So you can find out by keeping this as a hint, ninth problem as a hint, find out the 10th one. Okay. Thank you.